What's happening, everybody? If everybody's having a fantastic weekend, if you're watching this on Saturday, then chances are your Saturday did not go quite as well as you had hoped. Well, greetings from Houston, Texas, where it is once again raining. Imagine that. Hot, muggy, and what the hell is with the rain? We've been getting touched up. I swear, I don't know how many days it has rained or how many days it hasn't, but you always remember the ones that it has, because it basically just turns everything into a wet, funky mess. So, hey, at least it's not 110 degrees, but, you know, gives us all something to complain about. So, anyway, track was closed this past Friday, so couldn't go down there or get any passes in. Car's running good. You know, it's still on 93 octane. Still on stock boost, still has the 309 gear in it. Oh yeah, by the way, the G0 of the evening will be the green, or for some of y'all, yellow, however you call it. Traditional green. They ran out of purple, so I don't know. I'd like to think I had a little bit of something to do with that. But at any rate, yeah, I wanted to get the car down to the drag strip, but they were shut down this weekend. Car's doing great. It's running 1050s in the heat. Average DA on that. You know, the last passes, it's been spanning between 22 and 28. No, I'm sorry, 24 and 2,800 feet. So if you know anything about that, you will know that that is muggy and hot. And usually, you know, down here, if the DA is anything much above that, the track prep is going to be garbage anyway, so it's not going to be really worth taking the car to the track, at least not during the day. There's just no way to keep the track in decent enough shape. So, I mean, the VHT just stays liquid. I should know. I'm still carving that stuff off my inner fender well. So, letting some folks climb into the bus here. Let's see. Donald Powers is in. What's up, man? Saying I just hit YouTube and there's Mason. I like it. Clutch 392 is checking in saying, what up, B? What up, Clutch? Bob's checking in saying, B, what up, Bob? Donald Powers, good to see you, brother. Kobe saying, sup, B? Yeah, the rain killed my racing events. Maybe next week. Yeah. And then Sinners is saying, happy Saturday, Mr. B. Got the arm flex. So, yeah, I, you know, don't really have much else to report on the red car. Little Miss Revlon is doing her thing. Want to see a good shot of her on a launch? Go to Houston Raceway Park's Instagram page. Go into their, I don't know what you call it, just the area where they got all the pictures and stuff like that. And you'll see they're showing the back of my car on a launch. Basically, they're promoting their Tuesday night race events. So they're going to start racing on Tuesday nights. And there's going to be a top 10 list, you know, for all kinds of different cars. There'll be a top 10 for heavyweight. There'll be a top 10 for a lot of different cars out there. And then roll racing. So they were using my car to advertise for that, which I thought was super cool. I love it. And gave me an opportunity because I had never actually seen that video. And it's a great shot of right at the back of the car, and you can watch it leave. And it's a real pretty video. So if you haven't seen that, go over to Houston Raceway Park's Instagram page and check that out when you get the chance. It will be the red Hellcat launching. So, all right. So enough BSing around. So something new from Dodge is coming July 8th. And it has been teased that it is going to be the next generation of, or let me reset real quickly. It has been rumored that it will be the next iteration of what may be a Demon Slayer coming from Dodge. Now, whether or not that's really the case, who knows? There's also some speak of this particular contraption being shown at SEMA in November. Again, not really sure about that, but what I will say is that if the rumors are true, and if there's any semblance of truth to this, at least we'll be seeing something new and potentially exciting coming from Dodge. Now, what could that new and potentially exciting contraption be? Well, nobody really knows. It's been hinted that Dodge will be leaning more toward a hybridization of a Hellcat powered something or another, or an all-electric Tesla slaying, or at least contendering for that Plaid edition top spot for EV dominance. Now, it would be very Dodge to do something like that, and with the E-Jet, E-Cobra Jet, if you will, it sets the stage for the future of drag racing. And, you know, on the heels of the EPA basically throwing their weight around and reinterpreting the law, which is a kind way to put it, I suppose, there shouldn't be any surprise here. And besides, with electrics now really catching on with racers and folks finding out just how fast they can get these things to go, it's getting to be something that is going to be a bit more accepted. And with Dodge leading the way, assuming that they're going to do this, with this new car, that's going to be a very exciting thing to look forward to. Again, speculation, I don't know. It could be a Challenger, could be a Charger, could be all-wheel drive, could be anything at this point. Nobody knows because nothing has been set out into public yet. But again, the walking around consensus is it's some kind of hybrid or some kind of electric. Now, personally, I'm hoping that it's something all electric. And the reason for that is I view hybrid as a little bit more of transitional technology. I know that there are instances where hybridization does a really good job, but it's a lot like a compound boost setup. You know, you don't get the full effect of the turbos, and you can't really take full advantage of the supercharger. You know, it's just kind of, you almost get the worst of both worlds. Well, hybrids to me, depending on the type of hybrid, we're not talking mild hybrid or, you know, any other standalone type of a hybrid like a, you know, generator plus type deal. We're talking, you know, split drivetrain. Those seem a little bit too transitional. I'd prefer to see a full EV. That way, all of the efficiency of the electric motor can be utilized. Let's see where they take it. But either way they go, it'll at least represent a significant leap forward. Now, I guess in a way, part of me is a little bit bummed out. You can kind of get the sense that they've given up on, hey babe, and my wife just text messaged me saying, have a great show, and we got leftover pizza. Yes. So, but love you, babe. So the main thing is, I guess the big question, rather, I should say, is what will it be and how will you guys feel about it? Would you prefer to see a hybrid or would you prefer to see an all-electric? And let me just couch that question. Let me just go ahead and move the conversation along here by saying that if it is all-electric, it puts Dodge in a unique position. If it's all-electric and not a hybrid, it puts Dodge in a direct line of sight competition with Tesla and that Plaid edition or Plaid Plus or whatever is going to come around the corner. Those cars are disturbingly quick. And if the E-Cobra Jet, for lack of, you know, better way of putting it, is any indication, running 8-second quarter mile times is just a lot of power and not a lot of weight away. And it's clean. Oh, wait, that shouldn't be news to anybody. People have been putting big power in lightweight cars for a long time, but it's the way these things put down the power that make it so different. If you saw any of the videos of that Cobra Jet going down the track, you would have seen that it looked like a power glide transmission. That is, in my opinion, what it's going to take for this Dodge to actually be a true contender. It's going to have at least a 2-speed transmission. Hang on, I got to plug this thing in. And the reason why I say that is because it's great to be able to spool the thing all the way down the drag strip, but the fast cars like the Taycan and the e-tron all have 2-speed transmissions. The E-Cobra Jet has a 2-speed, and it allows for that big hit of power at the big end. The only one that doesn't, oddly enough, is the Tesla. It's a different type of motor, though, extremely high RPM, so maybe they think that it doesn't need it. But if it had it, it'd be even better than what it already is. So anyway, that's the news as I've read it, and I figured I would bring that to you guys and get y'all's opinion on it. Let's see. Sinister's checking in, say happy Saturday, Mr. B. Got the arm flex. I like it. Chuck saying, I'm in. Hello from Vermont. I like it. And Coach saying, every time we run in Oklahoma, the DA starts at 1200 and goes way up from there. Maybe that's why I can only run a 1080. Maybe. I mean, I'm running 1050s and 2800, so I know you can do it. Marco's in. What's up, man? Coach saying, DA normally is 2400, 3600 all the time. Yeah, and the thing, if it's, I don't mind 3,000 RPM, or 3,000 RPM. I don't mind 3 DAs at 3,000 if the temps just aren't high like crazy. If you're already at elevation, but man, when you're already that low and you get them that high, that's crazy. No, Donald's saying, did you see the 812 at 174? The Mustang all electric looked like it had a transmission, not just straight to the axle drive. Yeah, it looks like it's got a 2-speed. Team Bronski saying, bring back the Dart. It looked like an electric car anyway. Chuck saying, electric Coronet. Hey, I'd take it. Look, if it looked like a B-body and ran like a demon, are you kidding me? I'd be all over that. Well, I see that. See, that brings us to the next topic of conversation. So Dodge is bringing out this, whatever it's going to be, the latest Halo car from Dodge. The big question, though, is going to be, what's this thing going to cost? Because, look, so far, it's already been driven into our heads that, well, it's Hellcat variant or nothing, meaning Hellcat, Red Eye, Demon, Super Stock. The list goes, the TRX, the list goes basically in that circle of Hellcat variants. Durango. But all of those vehicles are pricey. They're expensive. And it leads me to believe that this next, abomination that they throw out onto the world is also going to be potentially prohibitively expensive. And that's something that's kind of getting under my skin a little bit. I don't understand how it is. In the year 2021, how can you have that expensive of an electric car? It just doesn't make any sense. You've got less moving parts. You've got less really going on in the car from a manufacturing point of view. It's an electric motor with a transmission, hopefully, and some batteries. You put it in there. I mean, to me, I guess that's a complete and total oversimplification of the thing, but and I get it that batteries and speed controllers, but people have been using electric motorized contraptions for a long, long time. So I have very difficult, it's hard for me to square that argument that there's all this development cost and whatever that you got to recoup. No, there's not. You got to be kidding me. It's an electric motor. It's less complicated. It's got one moving part. So anyway, I digress. The main thing, though, is that it looks like we're going to get something. And although I'm sure it's going to be astronomically priced, I'm looking forward to whatever it might be, because to me, we've got to start seeing some level of acceptance with the EV market from Dodge. And I know to all the internal combustion purists that sounds like it's just ringing the death bell for the internal combustion engine. It's not. The internal combustion engine is going to be around for a long, 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 long time. Trust me when I say it's not going away. But this is just going to be a different type of power plant. And I think that it's interesting from a performance point of view how they can push that envelope, whether it's a performance envelope, a range envelope, repeatability envelope. In other words, how many times can you run this thing over and over again? I will say, for anybody living in high altitudes, this should be awesome. And anybody talking about density altitude issues, the hotter and the higher you go, the faster that car is going to be. It's the exact opposite of an internal combustion engine. So, all of the benefits that you get from living at sea level completely go away once you start not having to use old air and oxygen type things to make your car go vroom. So, kind of a neat little twist there. But again, I'm interested to see how far these things can go, but we won't know anything until basically sometime into next week. And assuming that they're going to show this thing at SEMA and not just start teasing it, I'll be interested to see exactly what the direction will be. Could you imagine an all-electric Viper variant? What the hell would that thing cost? And I'm sorry, but it always will kind of revert back to that with me. Think of it like this. The cubic dollar race is getting more and more obnoxious. In fact, you can look at it like it's getting more and more obscene. With the kind of power that modern cars are making today, it's easy to get jaded, but cars that are running 12s and 11s and 10s seem to be growing on trees. And when these electric cars start coming in and displacing those 12, 11, and 10-second cars, I think that they're going to start to warm the hearts of those internal combustion purists. But it's kind of hard to warm the heart when you're dealing with cold, hard cash. And that's exactly what it's going to take. And a whole lot of it, I'm sorry to assume this anyway, but it's going to take a whole lot of that to get your hands on one of these Halo-esque cars that are all electric. It just bugs the hell out of me. And the other side to that is that it's already expensive to build a cheap car. And I use cheap very loosely, but think of how much it costs to build a 9-second Mustang, a legitimate 9-second Mustang, one that will run 9s for years, not for passes, okay? Hellcats are expensive, but they're built like a tank and they're durable as hell, and you can seemingly run them at the drag strip forever, again, relatively speaking, and not run into any real issues. So, where does the buck stop? I don't know. But to me, it's just so expensive right now to even start to talk about these EVs. They'll say, and if Dodge starts innovating on their electric game, I would be mad at that. I'd keep my 392 and get an electric. Yeah, it'd probably be the best way to go about it. Don will say, let's call it a Roadrunner because that's what we're talking about. Basically, it is. Kobe saying, I'm okay with 45 to 60 grand e-car. I would be too. I tell you what, I would be super cool. And again, I get that, everybody wants to, everybody wants to have the fastest car. Everybody wants to have those bragging rights in these, especially with the electric cars. Because here's my thing. Okay, so let me kind of get to the point that I was going to get to, but before I, because I'm so easily sidetracked. What with Squirrel, or lately Dilla, we've had I guess a mom Dilla gave birth to a bunch of baby Dillas, and so we've been dealing with Dillas at the house lately. Don't know where Mama is, but we got babies all over the place. Anyway, they're cute, but the thing about it is this. You've got so many of these cars now that are unimaginably fast. You've got all the Teslas that are crazy fast. What's coming with Dodge, all of that's going to be, assuming that that's what they're going to be coming out with, all of that is going to be wicked fast. What I'm wondering is, okay, well, if it's in that $45,000 to $60,000 range, would it even be competitive with a 392. I mean, think about that for a minute. We're talking about cost and we're talking about EVs here. If nobody can really afford to buy it and it doesn't perform really any better than a stock Hellcat, for example, it doesn't matter what the cost is, it will be less than the competition. And really what I'm getting at is we're gonna be in this race with the EVs with their one party trick, which is to go very fast in a straight line. And if that is the game that you're in, and if that's the game you're playing, that Dodge is the brand for you. All right, because electric vehicles do not do anything marketably better than a gas-powered car. We're talking range, convenience. They can't even touch a gasoline-powered car in that respect. But what they can do is they can go from 0 to holy shit in split seconds, the way that gasoline powers only wish that they could. And so with that being their one party trick, wouldn't Dodge be like the perennial favorite here to make a drag car based around that mentality? I think it'd be perfect. Save trying to make something that handles well for somebody else. Nobody, and I mean nobody, by the way, save for some exotics and, you know, like the LaFerrari and a couple of other hybrids, but nobody really making EVs for handling purposes. They're making them and they're marketing them based around their acceleration. Well, Dodge, you might want to jump on this bandwagon. That's kind of how you market your cars. The Demon, fastest car in the quarter mile. Uh-oh, here comes the Plaid edition from Tesla that is going to challenge you on that. You better get ahead of that quick. You don't want a little guy out of California kicking your ass down the quarter mile. So again, with Dodge being that perennial quarter mile and American muscle car, Billy Badass on the block, that's what I'm hoping that they're going to be introducing. My only fear in all of this is that we will be looking at something that will be astronomically priced, very hard to get your hands on. It's going to be something that is so far outside of the realm of relatability in a way that you lose kind of a core audience here. You know, if you have a place like this, if you've got a Scat Pack and you've got, let's say, a tune, long tubes, high flow cats, maybe a ported intake, big throttle body, and a drag pack, and you're just going to the drag strip and having a ball with this thing, and you're running mid to low 11s and just having fun, that is a fun place to be with your car. The issue that you have as a Scat Pack owner is Hellcat, right? But Hellcat, you can kind of justify the distance between a Scat Pack and a Hellcat because of the cost. Hellcat to Red Eye is a lot harder to justify, especially considering you put a 309 gear in a Hellcat and you give a Red Eye hell. See where I'm going with that? Red Eye to super stock, you're not really even looking up anymore. And see what I'm saying? What I'm getting at is that the levels, you go from 5.7 to 392. You go, okay, so now we're to 392. 392 to Hellcat, and then you go Hellcat, Red Eye, super stock, Demon. Where do you go from there? You're not really looking up anymore. And so when you start throwing around an idea of a car that's going to cost potentially $120,000, that, and I'm throwing that number out there because that would fall kind of in lockstep with the price differences on your way up, with the key difference being that if you do buy the e-car, you never have to worry about throwing a rod, never have to worry about over revving it, never have to worry about anything other than keeping it full of electricities. So in that respect, makes life pretty damn nice. And if it's modeled somewhat after the Taycan or the e-tron or something like that, you can take it, you can drive it to the track, make, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 passes with the thing, basically like what you would normally make in a car, going to the track on a Friday night, and then drive the thing home. Plug it in, you're done. And most people, the hell was that? That'd be the loudest stereo I've ever heard in my life. And most guys with cars like that don't daily drive them, so leaving the thing plugged in, I mean, it takes 8 hours to charge it. Who cares that it's not going to be driven for probably 8 days, 10 days, 14 days, until the next track rental, something opens up or something along those lines. So, I guess it's really not that big of a deal. It wouldn't matter, for me, it would just, the car would go to the drag strip, make passes, come back to the shop, get plugged in, get washed, go to the drag strip. You don't have to put gas in the thing. So I'm interested to see what it's going to be all about. But would you even be interested in something like that? I guess is the other question that I have. Would you be interested in watching videos about an all-electric car do anything for you? And this is where I get a little bit, I'm a fan just like you guys are. And I start looking at this like all electric. Like, at what point are you just so disassociated with the car that you're not interested, no matter how fast it is? I'll give you an example of that. Like, I love seeing the NA cars. Like, seeing what guys are doing with NA cars is always fascinating to me, because I can relate with internal combustion. I understand that. I understand the aspiration of it. It's breathing air. It's using fuel. It has an exhaust gas, and it's making power mechanically and going down the road. I understand that. And there's a certain magic to it, when you're talking about camshaft profiles, cam timing, and tuning, and gear ratios, and all of that coming together to develop this experience for you. And so when I'm watching the videos, I can understand the combination. I know what that combination feels like to drive, because I've probably driven it. I get it. But with an electric car, is there a level of disassociation there? Like, is it too clinical? Is the electric car too clean? You know what I mean? Too sanitized to get worked up and excited about. Let me give you where I'm going with this. So the I don't know, what do you even call it? The E-Cobra jet? I almost called it the E-GT500. Whoops. By the way, side note, no, haven't seen any more GT500s at the drag strip. None, not one. I live in Houston, Texas, and this place should be swarming, just infested with GT500s, and haven't seen any. Lots of the new vets, though, they run good too. Maybe one or two of the GT500s, and they're not doing good either. At least the ones that I saw didn't. But let me give you an example. The E-Cobra jet, I see this thing go down the track, and it's interesting as like a curiosity. I'm watching this thing, and it's yee, and it's going down the track, and I'm going, okay, that's really cool. But it's a race car. And so it's a race car doing race car things. I know that it's doing cool things, but there's no sound to go along with it. And without the sound, it's kind of taking something away. You can hear the whining of the electric motor, which is kind of cool, but without that noise, it just kind of takes something away from it. At least when you're used to hearing the noise. And that's the part of it that I guess we're all just going to have to get used to. But I just don't know how well that type of a car would be received. It'd be an interesting conversation, that's for sure. Don't say they won't. Get back to you guys. Don't say they won't be making as much on the service end, so they probably will bump the price to make up for it. 17 miles of wires. Team saying the Charger, maybe. Kurt's talking about an electric truck. Yeah, no, that's way far off. Although I say that, it's actually not that far off. Ford's coming out with their electric truck, and their, I guess if you want to call it a base model truck, is actually pretty impressive. What would be like their tradesman version. What was it, 300 horsepower, 400 pound-feet of torque. Yeah, it probably wouldn't do all that great for towing, for sure. Commuting, it would be okay, maybe, but the big thing is that a lot of guys hang out in their trucks and they're idling all day. So I don't know if that thing's gonna be able to run the AC while your foreman is in there doing whatever foreman's doing in their trucks. Anthony's asking, how long do we have with the current Dodge cars? The Brampton, Ontario labor agreement was extended from 2023 to 2025. So at least we have them until 2025. The gas cars in that LX platform. Oh, Cubby's saying, yeah, the dealer markup is going to be nuts. Yeah, that's the other thing. I just ain't going to forget the dealer markup. It's going to be astronomical. Potentially. If it's not astronomical, I might be a player with that. But I do not play the dealer markup thing. There is a backside to that transaction. That's your trade-in or your sell-on price. And it ain't based on what you paid over that sticker. It is based on that sticker price. So, Chuck saying this perfect EV would look like an old Mopar Run 8s and have some kind of an exhaust note emulator. That'd be kind of fun. It is freaking raining. Seriously? Again? Ashley, what's up, girl? Saying off topic, but do you know Houston Raceway doesn't want to let us use slicks for the list racing? We have 28s. They should let me do that. We're debating on showing up and asking if we still can. You know, I haven't read the rules on that. Most of the, well, I know some of the dot tires say not for highway use. I don't know. For a drag tire, that's going to be tough. I haven't talked to anybody about that. I haven't seen all the rules yet. I didn't see that in the rules, but if that's in there, and again, I didn't study it. So if that's in the rules, I'm going to have a bit of a problem because I don't have dot tires either. But let me know what you guys find out. Just, hit me up on Instagram. Let me know what you guys see on that. Because if it's got to be a dot tire, I'm kind of out of the running. I don't even have ET Street R's anymore. Mine are trashed. Gary's saying, I'm not opposed to electric. I just want my V8 War. I'm just not ready to accept it yet, but I'm just old school that way. It's coming whether you like it or not. That's true. Tux is saying, hey, B, how are you? Doing good. Working on his tablet. I like it. Actually saying they do say not for highway use. That's why we're wondering. We'll just show up and try and let you know. Yeah, I don't. Look, if it's a ET Street R, if it's a drag radial style tire, I don't know. I run either ET Street R's or DBRs, and I'm not gonna. In fact, I only now run DBRs. I don't even touch the ET Streets anymore. Something about them, I'm not getting the same type of wear out of them as I used to, and they don't seem to be hooking like they used to. And when they break loose violently, where the DBRs are a little bit more gradual when they do let go. So anyway, that's why I'm not making the switch back. I won't run mine, just like you guys. I wouldn't run mine. Maybe if I had a set of SS's, but I don't have a set of rims. I wouldn't want to run SS's on 20s in an event like that. It wouldn't even be worth it to me. So, Arthur's saying, what up, B Mason? What up, Arthur? I would prefer if Dodge would do a hybrid Hemi plus electric motors. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, with the hybrid, you still get a little bit. And so let's like walk through a scenario with hybrids. So the way that it would work for this type of a setup would be when the electric motor is part of the transmission itself. And the way that would work is it's just an assist. You would have the equivalent of maybe an extra 100 or so pounds of battery. The engine would also serve as a generator for your battery pack. Your electric motor would add somewhere in the range of about 120 horsepower and about 250 pound-feet of torque at the most. A lot of those assist type of radial electric motors is what they are going to fall into that range. You're looking at somewhere in that like Roots supercharger equivalent amount of power, just with significantly more torque, usually about another 75 or 80 foot-pounds of torque. So how would that shape up? Well, just do the math and it starts to eerily fall into place. 5.7 goes from 370 horse to basically 500 horsepower, give or take. It goes from 400 foot-pounds of torque to 600. And you can just imagine what a car like that would be like to drive and run down the drag strip. The 6.4, the 392s, would pick up about 125-ish horsepower in this scenario. So you'd go from, 475 to basically 600, and from, 485 to roughly 600. And you'd go, you'd have basically about the same in torque bump. You go from 4 to 650, for example. I don't know if you'd see this in a Hellcat variant, because you would have to hit the Hellcat with a significantly larger shot, of voltage. You'd have to hit it with more power to make it significantly faster. I mean, we've already seen that Hellcat platform makes a ton of power. So, an extra 100 horsepower or 150 horsepower on top of 700, not that big of a deal. An extra couple of 100 foot-pounds when you're already making close to 700, 650 in this case. Yeah, it's 30% more, but it's not like that's a huge jump, where with the 5.7 to be a 50% gain in torque. So that's where you can kind of follow these numbers and see where where basically your performance gain would fall. You'd put 5.7s faster than a 6.4. 6.4s would be about as quick as a Hellcat, and if you had a Hellcat variant, then it'd be even that much quicker. But even with that, now you just hybridize the entire lineup, and think of what that cost would be. You figure for a hybrid, you're looking at least another $15,000 per variant. And so you would take a $40,000 car, and now it's $55,000, which would make sense because your $45,000 Scat Pack would now be roughly $60,000, and it would still be a little bit slower than your $70,000 Hellcat. So you can see where, $50,000 is quicker than $45,000, but it's not as quick as 60, which isn't quite as quick as 70. And really, you're not even talking about Scat Pack or 392 or RT anymore. You're just talking about price points. So it's going to be price engineered at that point. You can kind of see where I'm going with this. It's getting back into that argument or that discussion or whatever, where you grow within the brand, and you're going to, and it's like, you guys, you don't seem to understand growing within the brand. It's an easy thing to say, but it's incredibly hard to do when you're looking at dollar signs like this. And for anybody that's blue collar guy, 9 to 5 type of guy, gal, that's working in an office, that's working in a corporate environment, say she's a TM or a rep for a company making good money, it's still hard to get to that number. Like, you got to be making a lot of money to be able to cover the nut on a $55,000 or $60,000 car. Now, granted, you can sacrifice some other areas and do without and have that thing, but you're going to be doing without in some cases. And that's kind of where I'm at with this. It's going to take a lot to convince me to get to the kind of number that they're going to be asking for an all EV hot rod coming out of Dodge. I mean, $100,000+. You know how much of your budget that's going to eat up? That is going to be insanely expensive. It's going to be extremely hard to justify going into debt like that, because unless you just got paper, you ain't going to be able to go in there and just buy that car. So again, that's why I'm asking, would it make sense? Would anybody even want to see what that thing does going down the drag strip? It would be a curiosity for about 6 months. The demons kind of sound familiar at this point. It'd be a curiosity for about 6 months or a year, and then that's it. You'll have seen it. Oh, okay, yeah, that thing goes 9s. Just like every other modified Hellcat, it goes 9s. And then here comes the argument, it'll be, that thing's 120 grand. You can modify a Hellcat and that thing will stomp a mud hole in its ass, an ass in its mud hole, whatever it is. You can kind of see where I'm going with that, though. And so it always boils down to money, right? I mean, that's kind of the unfortunate portion of this, but this is not a necessity. This is a toy, really, at that point. You will not be using this thing to drive from home to work and back as a daily commute, nor will you be taking this thing on road trips. You want to, take a trip a couple hours out. I doubt you're going to be taking something like this. Although if it's got the range, if you're within, say 100 miles one direction and 100 miles back, maybe it makes sense to be able to play with this thing like that. But you're going to be suffering from some level of range anxiety. Mix that in with the fact that where you're going to charge it once you're out and about anyway, because none of that has been standardized yet. Kind of figured that would be one of the first things people would be taking a look at, but it ain't. So I am left wondering what would be that market. Will it have the range to be able to compete with the Tesla? Because you got to have range or it's pointless. Will it have the performance to be able to compete with it? Will it be at a price point that anybody with any sane financial responsibility genes is, and if you're watching this, believe me, you probably don't have that gene, because I know I don't. If you've got the money to buy it, though, would it even be worth it? Where will your entertainment dollars be spent? Well, that budget's going to get wrapped up pretty quickly with a $120,000 electric contraption. And here's the other question that I have for you guys. With as emotionally involved as we get with these cars, and we get into tuning and you're data logging the thing, and what's this thing doing? And we're talking about turbos and superchargers and hot rod NA stuff, all these really fast cars that we talk about that you get invested in and emotionally involved in. Is there anything electric powered that is in your life that you have any emotional connection to? Like, do you get that worked up over your blender? Is your hair dryer something that you covet and that you look forward to experiencing time with every day? I don't want to hear about other electrical devices that you may have an affinity for, but you kind of get the idea what I'm getting at. The stuff that runs on electricity, it just doesn't have that warm and fuzzy feeling for most people. And that's something that is going to be very difficult to, I think, for a lot of folks, get around. But there is some light of hope here. There's still quite a bit of data logging that you can find yourself immersed with. Any of you guys that are familiar with RCs, if you're big into drones, cars, airplanes, boats, whatever the case is, You'll be familiar with some of the technology that allows you to see amp draw. You'll be able to see battery lives and speed controller distribution and all this other stuff. There's still a lot you can do in terms of data logging, but it's not the same. It's not suck, squeeze, bang, blow, intake, compression, fire, exhaust. It's not gasoline. It's not the stuff that make fire. It doesn't do that. And so for a lot of folks, they view that kind of as a source of disconnect, which again, I completely understand. But would that make it that much more difficult for you to spend that kind of money? Is that level of disconnect something that would make it harder for you to spend the premium that you'd be spending on these electric cars? I don't know. That's something that is yet to be seen. And of course, we're talking about something we're speculating on what this thing's going to be anyway. But the real takeaway from this is it going to be worth the money? And by the way, full stop here, okay? Yay, electric hot rod goes really fast. It does the one thing that electric cars do, and that's all of them's one party trick that they have. It's got to be able to do something different, but we'll get to that part of it later. Let's go back over here for a minute. Where the hell's the 426? If you're going to talk about what's coming, I need a swan song for what's leaving. And that's got to be a 426, right? I don't care if it's an aluminum block. It doesn't have to be. But the BGE block is like, it's fine with a 426 in terms of rod stroke ratio, everything else. Swan song us, the NA guys, swan song of 426. Please don't need the Hellcat. By the way, you already know some of the problems with the Hellcat engine already. Don't need it. What we need is, if this is going to be the last of the internal combustion cars, and if an all-electric is coming, you got to balance the scales here. Give us a 426. And I know that I've been a little bit of a fence rider. I know that I've been a little bit of a kind of a naysayer when it comes to, where's my 426? For the NA guys, because you can do a lot with a 392, and I get that. But if you can do a lot with a 392, you can damn well do a hell of a lot with 426, right? You can certainly do maybe more. And I think that Dodge owes us that. I'll be real upfront and honest and say this. I will be forever disappointed if Dodge ushers in this electric vehicle without giving the NA hot rod V8 its final due and gives us an outro that rides along with that 426 Hemi, and you can play the marketing however you like with this, but the 426 Hemi, we can talk about, the 392, the 345, the Gen 1 Hemis that nobody is still alive that even knows about those engines, or was around, I should say, save for maybe, a handful of people that knew why those engines were so special, why the 392 cubic inch displacement is so special, why the 345 is so special in the Gen 1 Hemi world. And nobody even thinks about that today. But you always hear about the 426, and that's really what got us here. Does that thing have a Hemi in it? Okay, fine. Send it out in a blaze of glory. Put a 426 into a Challenger, let her rip, and have that be the last of the hot rod, NA, whatever. If you're going to bring in an electric car, you got to bring it out with a bang. And I really think that it would be a crime if that didn't take place. Let's see. Cody's saying e-truck would be good for using as a generator as you race your Hellcat and tow your car. Pretty true. Fred's saying, what's cooking, B? What's up, man? Oh, HU saying his car's got a 3400 stall. You'd like to be able to launch at 3,000 RPM. The problem is that I overpower the brakes. Any suggestion when it comes to brakes that offer a strong bite? Well, one thing you're going to want to do, yeah, you're going to want to get organic brake pads, even though they seemingly wear out. They have a little bit higher initial grab. So there's that. But if you've got a 3,400 RPM stall, you should easily be able to hang that thing at 3,000 RPM. So there's that. I mean, yeah, I mean, 3,000 RPM should be well within the range of that stall. You're not even really, you're taxing it, but you're not really taxing it that hard. Arthur Wall saying, good point. Thank you. Callus, his Camry hybrid is 40 horsepower. Beastly. Tux is asking if I knew much about monster trucks. Not really. I mean, I know about them mechanically, but I don't really know much about the latest with them. Chuck's asking, after checking with my finance guy, it is smarter to pay down my current RT loan more before trading up. The negative equity raises your payments higher, which is very true. I'm still obsessing over the red eye. Yeah, no, you're going to need to have, you're going to want to come into that conversation with as little negative equity as possible because those red eyes are pricey. You don't want to be adding any negative equity to any transaction, but especially one that's going to be that expensive. Tux is saying he went on a safari and their vehicles are awesome. I like it. Some kind of a muscle truck or monster truck. Chuck said, I wish they would bring back the 440 and new Mopars. You know, the problem with the 440, and Ashley's saying, I've got a car I need to put one in. The problem with the 440 is that they've got very small port heads. You've got to have a beastly set of heads to go on that 440, like aftermarket set of heads, so that they'll rev. The cool thing about a 440 is that it's, number one, 440 cubic inches. The second thing, it's a wedge motor. So they make great torque, real efficient, and they're easier to get parts for. I prefer the 440 over the Hemi, just in terms of cars that I've driven from back in the day. Whether it was the re-release of the Hemi, the 426 Hemi versus a 440 in a Roadrunner, was the first one that I ever drove and dynoed, and the 440 was just real instantly snappy to drive. The Hemi was just kind of a, don't get me wrong, I mean, it was cool, it sounded good, but you could immediately tell the difference between the two. The 440 felt like a proper big block. Like if you were to question what is it like to drive a big block, and I handed you the keys to a car with a 440, you'd be like, oh, okay, I get it. Or if I were to hand you the keys to like a, like an old Lincoln, like a Mark III, which I'm still looking for. Found an LTD, just haven't found my Lincoln yet. But something with a big block, like a 460, I hand you the keys to that thing, it's just initial, just rush of torque that you get with those high compression big blocks. The Hemi's not like that, but yeah, I get what you're saying. I would love to find something to put a 440 in. Dr. Div saying that 345 Hemi and not knowing that thing got a Hemi, the classic bring back. Oh yeah. Rick saying, what up, bro? What up? Hey man, I don't know why. Hey Rick, I don't know why your comments, like I've seen all your comments, but they're not posting on the videos, man. I don't know why. I can't even respond to you, but at least you made it in here. I don't know why your comments, they're not even being held up. There's like a section that holds up your comments. I don't know. You're not blocked, and I don't know why you're not on the on those videos. Kind of crazy. Doc's hanging out with 37. We're saying, got you on the 65-inch big screen. I like it. Star quality, bro. Woo! I like it. We're saying I built and ran mini 440s. Yeah, it's saying, oh wow, thanks. Yeah, I don't know why you're commenting. I mean, I can see them, I just can't respond to them. I go in to find it, and I literally cannot respond to it. It's real frustrating. In fact, I spent time going back and trying to figure out what happened in like the settings, and I couldn't figure that out. So it's weird. But yeah, in fact, there's a 69 Roadrunner over at Pikes right now that is a 6.4 transplant car. It's got the report and intake for it. It's actually got one of Dr. Diff's throttle bodies on it. And so we'll see how that thing goes. It's got one of my cams in it, but it's a real pretty car. A bit of a resto mod look to it, but nice. A 392 with a 6-speed. But yeah, I would be real interested to see what it is, what this new contraption is going to be that Dodge has got coming around the corner, you know. And the funny thing about it, though, is that I guess we're going to start getting teased. Like, this is the teaser for the teaser. Maybe that's the best way to look at it, because right now we got no idea what it is. And again, it's been rumored, and with interviews with Dodge brass, it's basically been, well, you know, the gasoline-powered muscle car is going away, and you know, there's just not much else to talk about. You know, all electric, man. Okay, well, that's nice and all, but just I'm hoping that they don't completely and totally alienate their entire buying fan base, which is the only proper way to put it. Because if you're into Dodge, or if you're into Ford, or if you're into Chevrolet, there's a different mentality kind of with each brand. And Dodge is a different breed of fan. It's a different breed of person. They want the different. They want that image, that muscle car image and feel. And without it, it's just kind of a, you know, it's just kind of another boring car, right? So you've got to have that we're on top in one way, shape, or form attitude. When you're a Dodge fan, you've got to have that leg up. And Dodge's claim to fame, and it still is and always will be, the drag racing portion of this, and or racing on some level. And again, without it, you're not gonna be able to sell cars. And I think that, you know, although it's cool to have cars like the Demon, because it helps to drive sales and it builds an image, and I get that it's an image in a halo car, fine. But what bothers me here is that there's nothing in the Dodge parts catalog that is waterfalling from these cars. And this brings up another point that is a bit of a sticking point with me. Not only if it is an all-electric or a hybrid or something like that, there's no waterfalling of these parts down to the Hellcat or the 6.4 or down to the RT, right? So, and what makes it even worse is that Dodge is the worst about not allowing the enthusiast to buy parts off of these other cars. It's a little bit of a slap in the face. Like, if you're a Hellcat owner, do you realize that you can't buy a red-eye drive shaft? If you're a Hellcat owner, or a RT owner for that matter, doesn't matter, do you realize you can't buy a Demon hood? It's like I just don't get it. Like, what are you saving it for? You could charge $1,500 for that hood if it cost you $500 to make, and sell hoods and just generate profit margin at that point. I just don't understand it. You can go into any Chevrolet dealership, and if you want a ZR1 hood, you go, "Can I get a ZR1 hood?" They go, "Sure, Mr. Customer, we'd love to give you one of those." You go, "Take my money." And they do, and they give you this thing that you want, and you go home and you do whatever you do with a ZR1 hood. I don't know. That's your business. But the idea is Dodge disallows that. And that's a huge problem for me. So to say, and that's not how it used to be. I mean, you had direct connection. You buy the intake manifold. If you want a tri-power intake manifold, you could go to Dodge. It was a Dodge part number from direct connection, and you could buy that part. If you wanted anything for any car, you could go to any Dodge dealership's parts department and buy the thing. And we're missing a lot of that. And there's already no direct connection, and there's already no Dodge performance division really for their customers. So we're having all of these cars being marketed to us, but as enthusiasts, that's as far as we can get with these things. And there's no dealer supported hot rod package for any of the 392 or Hellcat cars that are out there. So again, it's one thing to market your cars the way that Dodge markets them, but what I have a growing issue with is, number one, not being able to get the parts that I want from higher level cars, if you will, even though they've waterfalled Hellcat hoods downstream. Anyway, that's beside the point. Hellcat front fascias have waterfalled downstream, but you get the point that I'm getting there. But I don't know, for me, because if it is going to be an all-electric car, it will be a one-trick pony, which is fine. The Demon would agree that that's not a problem. I can only imagine where this thing is going to be priced, and that's the other issue. And I just don't know that anybody, I don't know that anybody's going to get overly worked up about it. And that's what I'm also concerned with. Dr. Deuce, those throttle bodies are getting hard to get electronics for. I can understand that. Dip's asking, hey, what's better for mods, a 392 or a Hellcat engine? Hellcat engine, by far. Doc Dip's checking out. He's out in Florida. Have a good one, buddy. Y'all take care. Hey, Dad saying, damn it, just got a 392. If they come out with a 426, I'm going to take a bath on trade. Yeah, don't worry about that. That is specifically wishful thinking, my friend. I do not think for a minute that Dodge would do that. But it would be a shame if they didn't. I mean, if you think about it, wouldn't that be the right way to go out? I mean, talk about going out on your sword. Talk about a legend move, right? But the sad thing about it, and this is the God's honest truth, if they did come out with a 426, be better off keeping your 392. The performance difference may not be all that great, and it will be less than Hellcat territory. So if you wanted something faster than a 392, you can go with a Hellcat. But I don't know. 392 is way too much fun on the street. I have snipered after Hellcats with my SRT 392. I would never, unless you just walked up on a crazy smoking hella can't pass it type of a deal, I wouldn't get rid of a 392 for a Hellcat. And this is coming from somebody who's not only a Hellcat owner, but from somebody who has driven every variant of every Hellcat, from Hellcat 262 gear, Hellcat 309 gear, Hellcat upper pulley, Hellcat upper and lower pulley, red eye, pulleyed red eye, Demon, pulleyed Demon, cammed, stroker, all of it. I've driven literally every single one of them. And at what point, there is a point where it's just, it's not any fun on the street anymore. It's too much for the street. And the analogy that you will always hear me give is like, well, you can never have too much power. You're just an old man. You're full of shit. You don't know what you're talking about. Really? Had several thousand horsepower cars in my life. I'm keenly aware oh my God, of the fact that I would love to have none of those cars back and all of the money back. But yeah, the analogy you'll always hear me say is more is not always better. More is just sometimes more. Okay. So I will always offer to you the shit sandwich analogy. Would you like more shit on your sandwich or less? When you start getting into the big horsepower cars, they are a shit sandwich almost always. The Bravo package, one like Racer X had, extremely nice car, very fast on the drag strip, very fast on the street, but past the limit of any sane tire compound is gonna be working for you on the street. You will never get the car to hook on the street. Kind of hooks on a roll, from a roll, but will still light the tires up at 65 miles an hour. Durable as hell, great on the drag strip, overkill for the street. And that's what that's all I can say. There's a lot of guys that love overkill, and I'm kind of one of them, but I will say that I have grown more into the is it fun to drive than is it fast, because I've driven a lot of insanely fast cars, and even those cars are not fast by some other standards that are out there. So yeah, trust me, I get it. Dr. Div is checking out. See you, buddy. Rick's saying, I think that those of us that have well taken care of Hellcats, we already and will continue to be in the future, have a great investment. I love my car, man. It's a lot of fun. And I don't really have a desire to move away from it. So in talking to some friends of mine, this is one of those things where I've got to say, it would take, and I've said this over and over again, it would take something eerily good for me to move away from the Hellcat platform. I like the car too much. I like that it's big. I like that it's built like a tank. I like that it runs mid-10s in crappy DA. I like that it does all the things that it does. Is the new car, and this is really the bottom line answer that you have to be able to come up with, especially if you are a Hellcat owner, 392 owner that's looking to trade up. If you are thinking about building a Mustang or a Camaro, thinking about the new Vet, thinking about a build just in general, but you own something now that's already pretty good. You own something now that is hard to walk away from. Again, like a really well sorted 392 powered car, or a warmed over Hellcat or Red Eye or whatever. Is going any faster going to be worth the money? I mean, are you really in this as a number chaser, or do you do this on the regular? Is the car just going to be an investment? Like, oh, it's the first electric hot rod from Dodge. Yay, I'm going to put this thing in a bubble. Yay, I guess. What about battery longevity? What about battery life in general? How long do those things last? One of the questions that I had was, and this is one of the things I always wondered about electric cars. I know that lithium ferrous, lithium iron batteries are extremely stable over very long periods of time. They just don't corrode. They're just super stable batteries. And I know this from the RC side of the world. But one of the funny things is I had a drill, like a battery-powered drill, had an internal battery to it. And that battery, corroded, ate through the drill and killed the drill. It was one of these little internal drilly things. Nothing like that sweet, super high dollar Harbor Freight Hercules that, by the way, I'm shocked. I'm surprised it's not sitting right here. I'm shocked that it's not fried itself. That thing's actually turned out to be a really good buy. But do the batteries ever go bad in these things? Like, what is the long-term concern with these? By the way, here's something else. Make sure that those things are stable, because you want to see something go up in flames. Get a speed controller hot and have it arc on you. That thing will it turns into a giant arc welder. So anyway, just things to be concerned about. But you're carrying a tank full of gasolines, so that's somewhat flammable from what I hear. Let's see. Mr. Blacktop saying, what up, you Mason? Got the fist bumps, I like it. Arm flex, just remembered. Stellantis does have the trademark for the CUDA, and I would love to see a lighter platform with some nostalgic look in a hybrid or EV form. That would actually be really cool, and okay, so, and I'm with you big time on this, because to me, it does have to pull at my heartstrings. It can't be something that doesn't invoke some level of emotion. But still, my thing with EVs is that they really are a one-trick pony. But damn, do they do that trick well. And look, if I'm hoping this would be the case, I would not be interested in it if it is a direct drive. If it is a 2-speed transmission, it will certainly get a lot more of my attention. I've already seen what a 2-speed will do for the overall performance in cars like the Taycan and the e-tron. If you're not familiar with those cars, the Porsche Taycan and the Audi e-tron are sister cars in essence, with the Taycan just simply having more power. It's about 750 horsepower, and the e-tron, it's a complementary car, I should say, to the Taycan, and it's checking in at about 650 horsepower. All that doesn't matter. The translation of that is Taycan S in this case, with that 2-speed, will run mid-tens at 130 miles per hour. The e-tron, being a little bit less powerful, but not less impressive, at high tens at about 125 miles per hour. Think about that for a minute. These are cars that will go over and over and over and over and over and over and over again now with the modern cooling and the modern speed controllers. Because you got to keep in mind, the things that limit electric cars are batteries, discharge rate, and longevity and durability and all of that. You've got batteries and you've got speed controllers that can manage that type of amp draw. Motors also fall in line with that, but motors are, just kind of secondary to what the speed control and the batteries can manage. Those cars are incredibly impressive, and they were top of the food chain. That was until the Tesla Plaid, and then you're going to have Plaid Plus come out. So you're going to have a lot to look forward to if Dodge goes down this route. But again, it's got to invoke some type of an emotional response. And I'm not sure, and, to be, just transparent, I'm kind of with Mr. Blacktop on this. I'm kind of the opinion where if it's not like a re-envisioning, a reinterpretation of the CUDA on the LX platform in that guise of an electric vehicle, and it's something else, it's something other than that. I don't know, maybe it's a new Viper, maybe it's something else like that, but I'm of the opinion that if it doesn't go down that path for me, I don't know how interested I'm going to be even still. And I'll take that a step farther though, and I'll just kind of comment on the fact that it would not be very Dodge to not have it be like that. Like, in other words, it would be just like Dodge to say, okay, here's your new CUDA. Here's the new CUDA, it's all electric, the fastest thing we've ever made, and it's mean, lean, and green. That could be what they're going to offer up. Maybe you get a your crate comes with a drag pack and a wall charger or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, you kind of get the idea. And there's some cool ways that you could come about this that would help to rearrange some of the thought processes that guys have that are diehard internal combustion enthusiasts, how to get them to cross the bridge over to that EV platform. But none of that makes any sense unless it's an affordable package. And look, we had demons coming into this conversation back in the day that were selling for the $91,000 or $87,000, whatever they were stickering at. all the way up to $110,000, $120,000 and up in some cases from there. It's, again, like I say, I hate to keep harping on price, but it's hard to get there for me. I can't imagine paying that kind of money for something that is range limited potentially, or we don't know yet. That's why I say potentially. We don't even know what the car is going to be yet, but we're just talking here. So potentially range limited. And again, is going to be limited in scope of what it is actually capable of doing for the money. So, yeah, you're really going to pay 120 grand for a Dodge, potentially a Challenger, if that's going to be the case, or a Cuda. It's going to make it rough. It's going to make it tough for a lot of folks to cross that bridge. Rick's saying, yeah, it's BS. We can't buy the upgraded parts. I tell you something. I just don't understand that. How can I not buy axles? I think I can buy axles. How can I not buy a drive shaft? How can I not buy whatever the thing is? The weird part about all of this is that you can buy the 309 rear diff out of an SRT if you have an RT. Why can't you buy the rest of the... It's just weird, man. It's just... And there's not... You talk about economies of scale and they only make so many parts for so many... Look, I guess I can understand that, but it's a part. You should be able to buy it. If it has a part number, you should be able to buy that part. I just don't understand why we can't. Chuck said it could be worse. You could have a McLaren sealed engine. Yeah, that's true. I just will never understand that either. Rick's saying, my Saturday night did not go as planned. Please hit your like buttons, everyone. Yeah, for sure. Himmy Dad's saying, yep, 426 would be the crown jewel for sure. Tux is asking, what is the difference between a Dodge Charger Scat Pack and a Dodge Charger Hellcat? A Dodge Charger Scat Pack has a slightly larger engine, but it is naturally aspirated. The Hellcat will have a slightly smaller engine, but it has a positive displacement supercharger. It also has a more robust transmission, and it is going to be making a lot more power than that 392 that is in the Scat Pack. Dip's asking, why Hellcat engine for horsepower? What's a stock limit on a Hellcat? Well, the stock limit on a Hellcat is, you can't say what the stock limit is. Okay, are you talking about E85? Are you talking about race gas? Or are you talking about pump gas? Because each one of those has a pretty significant limit to it. Are you talking about cammed and pulleyed? Or are you talking about stock boost levels? A 392, to give you an idea, 392, unless you tear the engine apart and open up the ring gap on the cylinders, is going to be limited in how much power it can make before that ring gap starts to get a little bit too close. And that's what pops ring lands and for lack of a better way of putting it, renders a 392 inoperable. The Hellcat, on the other hand, a little bit different animal, has a little bit different design on the piston. So from the factory, it's designed to be a supercharged car. My personal opinion, the stock boost limit to that car in terms of throwing timing at it and E85 and everything else. And I'll just speak in terms of ET. I mean, you're not going to reach any mechanical limit at stock boost. It's just going to be fuel quality related at that point. And so you can expect to maybe get a high 9 out of the car, depending on where you live, if you run an E85 conversion with stock boost. If you are running pump gas the way that I am, right now I've run a 1012 at 137 miles an hour, I think was my mile an hour, and a string of 10 teens with that car in really good air, but that is kind of stretching the limit of what 93 octane will manage. And that's with no butane, no Torco, no race gas mix or anything else like that. So basically anything in between 10 teens to high nines. You start running race gas, you can tune it, maybe get a 9-second pass out of it. If you're talking about boosted, like I say boosted in this case would be smaller pulley up top or maybe a bigger crank pulley, you're gonna be octane limited by 93 octane to about a 970 and 980 depending on where you live, at about 138 to 139 miles an hour. That's going to be 93 octane with Boostane or Torco. Do you want a package that you have to have an additive with? Do you want a package that you have to have E85 or race gas? That's up to you. But it's not uncommon to see 1,000 horsepower at the crank, 800 to the rear wheels, in cars that will run in that configuration for years and years and years and years and years and not have any problem. And that's even when they're being beaten on mercilessly. So that's the big difference between a Hellcat and a 392, or really a Hellcat and any other car that's offered today. It's one of the most endearing qualities about a Hellcat is that they are built to a level that they can take a certain level of abuse and not be affected by it. Where other cars that are not built as robustly as the Hellcat, they just can't handle that level of abuse. And it's use, misuse, and abuse are the three engineering criteria for mechanical design engineering: use, misuse, and abuse. And the Hellcat puts up with what would be considered abuse the way that others would fail at misuse with, if you want to put it on kind of a scale. So what's the limit? I've seen stock short blocks with cams, E85 pulleys, E85 pulleys make over 900 horsepower to the rear wheels. I've seen them with stroker motors and cams and Maggies make 966 with about 1,000 foot-pounds of torque to the rear wheels, give or take. So and that's on stock short blocks. And this is in really heavy cars too, so you've got to take that into consideration as well. Rick's just saying, I just love my 392 stick TA. Those are fun cars. Modded up just a bit. I like it. So I was asking, do you have any gear selections for the Nag 1 5-speed auto? Third gear feels a little sluggish. 370 is about as aggressive as I would look at for that. I know that I have driven a 426 with a 390 gear Nag 1 car. It was spunky. Had a pretty aggressive torque converter in that car though, too. So let's see. Dip's saying that he wants to swap it into a different car and get 1,000 horsepower. You can. You can hit that thing if you're going to go Hellcat way. The stock blower pulley 10% lower 275 upper with on E85 is going to be 1,000 horsepower to the crank. And if you're talking 1,000, well, that's on a Mustang dyno, so that's more like 900 on a Mustang dyno. If you're on a 248C dyno jet, and if you hit that thing with a $150 shot, it'll probably get close to 1,000 horsepower on a dyno jet in that configuration. So if you want to do it a little bit more, excuse me, want to do it a little bit more safely, you can run a different camshaft in it. It'll drop your boost pressure, but it'll raise the efficiency, so it'll make more power, and then hit it with dope and get to that point too. So it's tough to get 1,000, the number 1,000 out of them, but with that particular blower, but you can get pretty close to it. Peter's checking in. Rick's saying, I'll get interested in an electric car when it can go 400 plus miles on a charge, maybe an hour downtime. I know it's tough, man. That's part of it. It's just such a hard, it's such a hard sell for a lot of guys. So saying, I know a little bit about electric builds, but mostly through audio. I'm running two 270 alternators on a 100 amp limitless battery. That's pretty cool. As long as I don't drop to 13 volts, it's solid. When it drops below, bad news. I can understand that. because I'm assuming you're running those in parallel and not in series. Because yeah, if you're running them in series, you drop below 13 with that setup, you got some big problems. God, the stuff that I used to do with audio, it's been literally like a lifetime ago. But when I was in high school, I ran a custom speaker box business out of my wood shop in high school. So anyway, I'm somewhat familiar with that stuff, but again, I'm so far removed from it. I can't even, it's been forever ago. Chuck's asking, is the super stock not a good daily driver at 807 horsepower? I've seen some reviews stating that it's for track only. That is absolutely false. Super stocks and demons are some of the, and red eyes for that matter, because it's really all they are. One to the next to the next. They're all the same. They are amazing daily drivers, and they are so much fun to drive. It's not even funny. In fact, I'm on record as saying that the red eye and really the demon for that matter, super stock falls into this too, with a 309 gear is the happiest car you'll ever drive. It is just a treat to drive. They're always punchy. They're fun. And, where, yeah, they lack a little bit of top end rush, but it doesn't matter. They're just a hell of a lot of fun to drive. Rick, thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. Thank you very much for that. Didn't have a comment, but I do appreciate the support. Saying I have to get caught up on my chat dues, bro. I appreciate it, man. Thank you very much. But yeah, Chuck, no, that they're great. You could use them as a daily driver, no problem. Rick saying about the Dodge parts. I mean, damn, if you can prove that you own a Hellcat, they should sell you upgraded parts. I'll tell you what, man. I mean, I just don't. I don't get it. It blows my mind. So saying the only way I'd take the 392 is to make it a 448. Seen one at the track last night. Thing was mean. Yeah, so, but that's the point of it though. Like, okay, so you take a 392 and you put a stroker crank in it, pistons, rods, maybe touch up the heads, although I don't think you would need to. You'd have to run a hell of a cam on it. Run the sniper intake at that point because you're throwing another 50 cubic inches into the mix here. Go that route. Again, fairly significant cam. It's going to run good if all you got to do is just not screw up the build process. And you put a healthy enough cam in that thing to make it worth your while. And yeah, I would say it would work out pretty well. My only concern is the amount of money that would be invested in it to get it to that point. But if you want to build an NA car, obviously that would be the route that you would want to take. And, at the end of the day on a dyno jet, if you're leaving it naturally aspirated, not hitting it with nitrous or putting turbos or superchargers on it, you're looking at picking up about 100-ish horsepower to the rear wheels on a dyno jet. So it's going to make good power. It's going to do basically everything you could hope that it would do. But is it worth the money? Well, that's up to you. I don't know that I would drop that kind of coin on a 392, but if it's going into a different car, like you're doing a resto mod, it might be worth it. But yeah, it's going to be mean, that's for sure. And if you're going to put that big of a cam in that type of an intake, it's going to need a different converter. So there's going to be a lot that you're going to have to work with. But if you're patient, build it right, the thing's going to run really strong. Others saying or asking, B Mason, do you think that Dodge will really release the Dodge Hornet, updated Magnum, low roof line station wagon? I know folks rather get an SUV over station wagon these days? I doubt it. The reason why I say that is this goes back to 2016 when I was having a chat with, I wouldn't give the name anyway. Unfortunately I can't remember the guy's name now. Marketing guy, and I even brought up the Magnum at that point, and he was saying, I said, why don't y'all bring back the Magnum? That was such a cool car. And he said, well, did you buy one? And I said, no, I didn't. And he said, that's the problem. There's a whole lot of people that love looking at them, but nobody was buying them, at least not at the rate that it was going to take to mass produce them the way that they were. And yeah, I love the Magnums. And I really like the rebodies that a lot of these guys have done with those cars, and they look great. But I don't see them bringing that back. SUVs and crossovers are basically have taken over what wagon market there was, and which is a shame because I kind of like wagons quite a bit. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, so's about his the system that he's got. Damn, his system's cranking 156 decibels. That is crazy. I like that. That's pretty sweet. I've seen. So back in the day, they used to have, and I'm sure they still do. I just got out of it, but you would have cars or a lot of times it was Astro vans for whatever reason. And they would reinforce them, put the speaker setup in it, have the racks with the amps, and they would put bulletproof glass in these things because these things would hit so hard that it would literally blow glass right out of these cars. So they started running bulletproof glass in these things. Pretty cool stuff. Again, thanks again, Rick. I appreciate it, buddy. Mark saying, "Sup, Mason? I really hope it's something amazing for Mopar for the 8th. God forbid it's another damn Hellcat powered vehicle, or I'm going to jump off a cliff." Yeah, I mean, what else are you going to put a Hellcat engine in? And for me, look, one of the few things I would actually get worked up over would be a 392 powered RT single cab pickup or something like that. I just don't see that being the case. I doubt very seriously they'd bring that to the table. The TRX is neat, I guess, but I'm still sorry. I like it. I think it's a neat truck. It's not really walking in lockstep with what I would hope that Dodge would have made. I just really think that a 392 powered truck would be sweet. Bring back the Warlock, bring back the Little Red Express. Oh, damn, Peter's saying his 2019 Scat Pack got attacked by a rat, made a home on top of his engine, chewed up a bunch of his wires. Oh, that sucks. Tux is asking if I know the top engine RPM of the Hellcat. So yeah, from the factory they redline at 6,200. Most tuners will drag those things out to 6,400 RPM. But they're not loud. They do sound good though. Oh, so saying he had that set up in an old Vega wagon. That'd make a sweet drag car, actually. Mark's saying they better not upgrade the damn 5.7 after I've just gotten a 2020 RT or I'm going to be pissed. No, I don't see that happening either. Rick's saying, I'm just living to see a two-door Charger again. Sure hope Dodge does this. You know what's funny is that there are so many renderings of a two-door Charger, and I gotta tell you, man, I like the way that they look. I think the Charger is a great looking car, especially with wide body. That car was meant to be a wide body. So if they brought it back looking like that and it's all electric, it'd be a pretty sweet proposition. Oh, Arthur's saying, yeah, nobody bought the Magnum and nobody bought the SS either. The SS, I am convinced that the SS was, I think that it was shelled by GM, and the reason why I say that is the SS had literally zero marketing behind it. Nobody marketed the SS, and from GM, you never saw any print ads, and you never saw anything really driving that car from a from a marketing point of view. Nobody, you didn't have marketing like you do for the Mopars at all, obviously, but it wasn't even close to that. And I always thought that car was brought in maybe to satisfy a pre-existing arrangement with Holden Australia. Like, we will bring in, I'm just going to use round numbers because it's good for conversation, but we will bring in 50,000 cars, and you brought in 40,000, and you're like, okay, well, this isn't really working out with the GTO. G8's doing okay. Bring in 5,000 of the G8s, and what do you got? The SS. Okay, yeah, when you come out, yeah, we'll bring some of those in too. And it always seemed like, okay, we're just bringing these things in to satisfy an agreement, but after that, it's not even going to be a deal. My biggest beef with Ford and GM leading up to this, they brought in the SS, they brought in the GTO, the Holden Monero, but they never brought in the Ute. And what the hell? First of all, do you realize that Dodge had a Ute? A Ute, for you guys that may not know, is like a Ranchero or an El Camino. Dodge had a Ute, and we never got it in the United States, which is a shame. That thing was badass looking, but the modern Utes, we never got those. And I thought that was like, how are you going to bring in something from Australia and not bring in that Ute? That's absolutely stupid. So anyway, I'd have been all over that thing. That'd have been sweet as hell. But same with the Magnum, though. Everybody's a wagon guy until it's time to do wagon guy stuff. Like, I don't know, buy a wagon. And when you don't buy it, they don't make it anymore. And it just kind of sucks. Arthur's saying the Chrysler 300 with a Hellcat motor, missed opportunity. People do that swap. The funny thing is that we also don't have a 392 SRT 300 anymore. They're all 5.7 cars. Now, you can, in other markets, get one. I know the Aussies get one. I know that you can get one in the UAE, but you can't get one here, which, again, is dumb. Sam Jackson saying, hey, Mason, what up, Sam? Chuck saying the new version movie, The Car, has an SRT 300 in it. Not sure if this is real or just Hollywood. I don't know, but The Car is a freaking awesome car-based scary movie. That horn just scares the shit out of me to this day. Sam saying, happy 4th of July. Happy 4th of July to you, man. Oh, Brandon's saying, now that the Vet is going to come with a 5.5 liter dual overhead cam motor, how long before Dodge does a mod motor? Well, keep in mind, that's not a modular engine. Fords were modular at one point. That just means that you could literally stack cylinders based on the castings of those things. But I get what you're saying. I don't know. I don't know that they ever will, to be honest. And that 5.5 liter flat plane engine, Ford had problems with the Coyote where there's an NVH issue with flat plane crank engines. You would think that it would be super smooth, but you have vibrations that happen within flat plane engines in four cylinders in general. Is primary and secondary harmonics is what we're talking about. And four cylinders suffer from this. The larger that they get, the higher the RPM they get, the worse these secondary harmonics get. Now, in some displacements, small engines like 1 liter, 2 liters, you have to rev the thing to such a high RPM to get to these damaging secondary harmonics that you'll just never get there, and they're very smooth. But the bigger the engine gets, the lower the RPM becomes, where those secondary harmonics start to really create a problem. And a flat plane V8 is just two 4-cylinders sharing one common lobe on the crankshaft. So it's going to suffer from that. In other words, it's firing bang, 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 bang. You're going to get your secondary harmonics are going to kick in earlier on a 5.5 liter engine. They're talking about this thing spinning at 8,500 RPM. I don't know if they're going to have a balance shaft in this thing. I don't know what they're going to do to make it survive. But where I was going with this is that Ford had hell, still does in some cases, with that Voodoo 5.2 liter engine trying to fly apart. So I don't know how you get around that. I don't know if it's this has never been explained to me. Is it a bore to stroke issue? You know, can you put a big old bore with a real short stroke and mitigate some of those secondary NVH issues and vibrations of the harmonics and all that? I have no idea. But I can tell you that Ford had problems with the 5.2 liter in the GT350, and they still were having problems with it. There's a reason why it's not a flat plane crank in the GT500. It's because chances are it would fly apart with that supercharger sitting out in front of it. So, Arthur saying, didn't know Dodge had a Ute. Yep, they did. It was cool too. Rick saying, maybe the big push to go electric is because it seems we've hit the wall on passing emissions with the EPA. Well, it's not that. We've hit the wall from a fuel point of view. And, you know, you take the weight of the vehicle, the cylinder pressure that these engines are creating, the heat that they create, and you start to look at what 93 octane can effectively manage. And when you look at it from that point of view, there's only so much power that 93 octane can support before it becomes the limiting factor. And I think that's really where we're at. And actually, one of the things I'm surprised about is manufacturers for a while, Sky Active is one of the engines that you might have heard of. But anyway, one of the things that automotive manufacturers were looking at is how high of a compression ratio can they run? Because the higher the compression ratio, the more efficient the car will be. But the idea was, well, if we just had better fuel quality, you could run 13, 14 to 1 compression with a turbocharger and get insane fuel economy numbers and still maintain a certain level of power with a very small engine. And there was, you know, a lot of folks just saying, look, you know, we've got to have 96, 97, 98 octane to be able to do that. You can kind of get there with ethanol blended fuels, but we're just not there. You don't see that at the pump right now. And so without, you know, these high octane fuels, you can only go so far with what you have available to you. And that's why this is where we're at, so to speak. So, and you'll see that with different cars, like the Bugatti Veyron has, you know, one power rating for 93 octane, 91 octane, and then one for E85. And they're kind of miles apart at that point. But yeah, the more power you make, the more it is necessary to have a very high quality fuel. And we just don't have that in the 93 octane that we have. So hybridization, electric, there's no octane rating for electricity. It's just voltage at that point. And how much of that voltage can you get into that electric motor? That's how much power it's going to make. If the motor can handle it, the speed controller can handle it. It's just like anything. I mean, the voltage is like boost in a way. You know, the more you throw at it, the more power it makes. So we'll see how it is. Obviously, amperage has a part to do with that too, but you get the idea. So we'll see how this works. And if you ever wonder, like, the difference is voltage is like horsepower and amperage is like torque. So real high voltage, real low amperage is like having real high horsepower with real low torque, and the opposite is true with amperage. So just kind of a way to wrap your head around some of that stuff. What about the 6-cylinder that the Aussies have? You're talking about the Barra, the Ford 4-liter engine, which is their version of a just a killer 6-cylinder, which is popular for hot rodding over there. And yeah, you can get the Barra in a Ford Ute, and it's very easy to get 600-700 horsepower out of one of those engines. Rick's asking, what do you think the future is for E85? It's got to become more. It's got to become more convenient of a fuel to get. A lot of folks just don't have access to it. A lot of parts of the country really have a hard time with it. If you're, in the northern states, you may have a hard time with the 85 because ethanol has a nasty habit of freezing. It's hydrophilic, meaning that it likes water. So storage becomes a bit of a problem with the 85 long term. So again, if you've got a car sitting for any real length of time because you're snowed in like they do up north, then that could be a problem as well. What's the future? I think it's going to remain popular on a limited basis. I think that guys that are in the know and are testing their fuels, it's the ultimate cheat code from a tuning point of view for making power because it's very forgiving. But, what's the future of it? It's going to be limited in its scope, but still long-term, it'll be very available. And more consistent 85 as well. Yeah, you need, obviously, the most consistent you can get. The problem with the 85 is that E85 is the specification sheet for E85 is E70 to E90. So expect to have anything from E70 to E90 in that tank. So, how much of an issue is E70 versus E90? Well, E70 is still 96, 97-ish octane. So not bad, but you would certainly not want to be tuned to the moon on a true E85 and then have a tank of gas that pisses a little bit hot on E70. Just kind of something to consider there. Rick's saying it's up there in northeastern Ohio, but it's still kind of spotty. And he's saying, Brandon's saying, sometimes it can test E50. Better watch out. I've never seen it that low, but that would suck if you ran into E50. But I will say this, I'm not surprised by hearing that because I will tell you that E at that point will be a problem. I never tested it, but I'd be almost guaranteeing you that it was like E50. We had one case where it was a black Hellcat, upper and lower car, basically it was a Bravo package on E85. And what the hell was I doing with this thing on the dyno? I was doing something with it on the dyno. And I had run to the station that we got all of our E85 from and just filled up a 5-gallon jug and got it to the shop. And what the hell was I doing? I don't think it was one of the nitrous cars. Maybe it was one of the nitrous cars. In fact, it was the nitrous car, now that I'm thinking about it. The guy had put a 100 shot on it. Sorry, this happened 2 different times. The guy put a 100 shot on it. I get the car on the dyno, put the fuel in the car because the car was brought to us with no fuel in it. It's like, you got to be kidding me, right? So anyway, go put the fuel in the car. And one of the things that I noticed, the car was idling on the dyno. And I had centered the car on the dyno, and I got out of it to do the final tight down for the straps. The one thing that I noticed is that it just didn't have that E85 smell to it. And I didn't really think anything of it at the time. I mean, I'm paying more attention to strapping the thing down, but I noticed it and I went, that almost smells like gasoline. And so I went and I looked at the fuel trims, and the short-term fuel trims were just marching into the positive, like going, it's adding fuel, adding fuel, adding fuel. So it was pretty obvious this thing had pissed hot and ended up having to take the car off the dyno. It was no fun, but that can happen. The whole moral of that story, long going around my ass to get to my elbow. But the moral of that story is that you can get bad E85. I've got a buddy who will remain nameless, who, if he is watching this, he knows who he is, who has the hard luck award with getting bad E85. It happened not once, but twice, and it happened here in Houston. So even at stations that are known good E85 stations, you can run into those problems. So I don't know what to tell you. I mean, as much as I would like to say that E85 would be the way to go, there's a reason why I'm not running E85 in my car, and that is the reason why I'm not running E85. I've seen enough to know that it's not always the best E85 that you're going to get, and if you try to put an aggressive tune on a car with E85, there's a chance that if you get bad E85, you're going to run into problems. And the problem with the person who will remain nameless, but he knows who he is if he's watching this, his car was bad enough where the dang thing didn't even want to idle or run, for that matter. So, I mean, could you imagine being in that situation? And then, you know, you're wanting to go to the drag strip, you put your Echo Ocho Cinco in the tank, you go to fire the thing up, you're driving down the road, fuel trims start looking stupid, car acts like an ass, and you did all of this to pick up, you know, an extra 30 or 40 horsepower on the fuel. You're trying to cover a number, and now you've got to drive the fuel out of the car, put your 93 octane tune in it, drive the thing around. It's just another thing that could potentially get funky. Now the idea would be, okay, we'll go flex fuel. Yeah, I get it. There's some flex fuel things that are kind of working. I'm out of that game. I thought about it. I had basically convinced myself that that's what I was going to do, and then I get in the car, I drive it to an Exxon station right up the street, I put 93 octane in the car, I drive the car, I data log the car, data looks good. Why go through the expense and why go through the headache to pick up an amount of power in a system that is not tested and may actually act like an ass, and then put my car at risk over that? Not going to happen. So saying, up here in Ohio, I'm about 30 miles away from an E85 at a gas station. That's why I'm sticking to 93 and not swapping until it's all over the place. Absolutely. It's already bad on miles per gallon, and that is true. And that's another reason why, you know, if you're running E85, you're already range limited and have range anxiety as it is, so the electric car shouldn't be any big deal to you, other than the fact that you can't just, you know, go find corn. You can't fill up a bucket full of electricity and pour that into your electricity tank. It doesn't work like that, but I get it for sure. Rick's saying they're building a brand new Shell station around the corner from me. I'm praying for an E85 pump. That would be good. HU's saying, do you see Dodge building flex fuel cars? The advantage with flex fuel cars, the PCM will adjust for different alcohol content. So they have flex fuel cars. I mean, they do have flex fuel protocol. They just don't have it for the Hellcat or for the Hemis or for any of the cars that would actually benefit from it. It's inferred logic, so you know, it's using the O2s in that respect. So I mean, there's a way to get there. I mean, I just don't get it. In this day and age, in this modern era of which we live, how are you going to not have E85 compatible supercharged car? How? Like, that to me is, it's like the black sheep of things to be upset about, because you can be upset about a lot of other things, but when that issue is brought up, it trumps every other issue in the room when it comes to Dodge. How the hell do you not have those cars compatible on a flex fuel basis? It blows my mind. And the only reason, coming from, marketing, MDE type of a point of view, the only reason why I can see not doing it is because these cars are typically not driven all the time. They sit for extended periods of time, and E85 has a nasty habit of eating things alive. So maybe that's why, maybe that's the mentality, and I'm going to have to roll with that, because if I start thinking too much about it, my sanity will start to leave me. And I would prefer to maintain my sanity with this brand as long as I possibly can. So that's what I'm just going to stick to in my brains. Rick's saying that he's going to be converting his to flex fuel. Let me know how it goes. Seriously. I mean, I'd be interested to hear how your journey goes with that. Brandon said, if you're racing and need it, just buy Igniter VP. It's always consistent. Correct. It is always consistent, and it's always consistently expensive too. The idea is to have fuel that you can just go down and buy at the pump. And by the way, getting race gas isn't just that easy. It's actually a bit of an endeavor. I know in Dallas, there's a guy that'll actually deliver it to you. But here in Houston, Bombaras is the only place that I know of that you can just go get race gas aside from the racetrack. So it's kind of a hard sell for me. So saying that's as far as I got. Was thinking about it. 93 has always been solid, and some octane boost to go good to go. Yeah, that's true. I mean, mix in a little butane, you'll be fine in most cases. Rick's saying, I'm just thinking about 85 as an octane booster to add to a tank of 93. Not a good idea because the stoichiometric value is significantly different between the two. And you've got to remember it takes 30% more of that fuel to generate as much power. So I would not use it as an octane booster. Get butane if you want a solid octane booster. Don't run the E85. Ken's saying he's got the flex fuel kit on his stock red eye at drop 3/10. I am convinced that it works, but I am also convinced that I will not be putting it on my car at this time anyway. So saying if you're okay with mixing gas, I know of a few vets right here that run 93 and 2 to 3 gallons of E85 mixed. If you've got the overhead with your injector duty cycle, and you've got enough pump to cover it, that may work. I can tell you that I would never trust it with a red eye, or with with a Hellcat, because I know what injector duty cycles look like on Hellcats, and it's not all that. There's no feel good moment when it comes to it, especially if you've got a tune on the car and you're running what is considered to be a normally acceptable fuel air ratio. And you guys saw my video when I was running the car in cold weather. I was getting over 100% injector duty cycle with the pumps kicking on to push it over 100%. Or kicking in, just basically the computer bumping up voltage to get the car to where it was fine at over 100% injector duty cycle. When you start adding E85, again, I mean, if you've got enough injector and you've got enough fuel pump, then sure, you can do that if you think you're getting away with it. But I just wouldn't mix it. Plus, you're probably not monitoring what your short-term knock retard is, and you might not be monitoring what your injector duty cycle is. I would do that. And if you're doing that, do it every time you mix that fuel. I wouldn't personally do it. Oh, Brandon's saying he's lucky he's got a lot of options with E85 and VP station that sells all types of octane. That is very, very fortunate. Speed Freak's asking, how would I describe the feel of a 600 wheel horsepower C6 Z06 compared to a Hellcat? 600 wheel horsepower C6 Z06 compared to a Hellcat. 600 wheel horsepower C6 Z06 compared to a Hellcat. 600 wheel horsepower C6 Z06 compared to a Hellcat. 600 wheel horsepower C6 Z06 compared to a Hellcat. 600 wheel horsepower C6 Z06 compared to a Hellcat. 600 wheel horsepower C6 Z06 compared to a Hellcat. 600 wheel horsepower C6 Z06 compared to a Hellcat. 600 wheel horsepower C6 Z06 compared to a Hellcat. 600 wheel horsepower C6 Z06 compared to a Hellcat. 600 wheel horsepower C6 Z06 compared to a Hellcat. 600 wheel horsepower C6 Z06 compared to a Hellcat. 600 wheel horsepower C6 Z06 compared to a Hellcat. 600 wheel horsepower C6 Z06 compared to a Hellcat. 600 wheel horsepower C6 Z06 compared to a Hellcat. 600 wheel horsepower C6 Z how would I describe it? So it's a completely different driving experience. The C6 Z06 at 600 wheel is going to be a bit more violent than the Hellcat is. The Hellcat is pretty sedate. Even though they're both making the same power, the Hellcat is about 1,000 pounds heavier at roughly 600 wheel horsepower for the Hellcat and for stock Hellcat, and 600 horsepower for the Vet. The Vet's going to be more violent. You will absolutely have to run the Vet on a drag radial of some kind on the street if you're going to be really getting frisky with it. I mean, I used to go sniping after Hellcats with, just south of 500 horsepower with my Vet. So, add another 100 horsepower to that. But yeah, no, it's a completely different driving experience. That 600 horsepower C6 Z06 is going to be spinning to about 7,000 RPM. I mean, or a little bit more maybe. That's going to be a hell of a good running car. Rick's saying, yeah, it's dual pump now, larger injectors to the whole fuel conversion. That's good. So saying, even talking about the Vet guy saying, even they say it's a pain to deal with, but to each their own. I try not to mix anything. Consistency is the key, and that is very true. You start getting into the whole alchemy of mixing fuels. I don't like the idea of mixing E85 because it's so far and away separate in terms of stoichiometric values. Not to say you can't do it, but again, if you're set up for it, you can get away with it. GT260 is a good mix fuel if you want to mix gasoline with race gas, because GT260 is also 10% ethanol, very clean race gas. In fact, it's a 91 octane gasoline with no ethanol, obviously, mixed with ethanol. So real good gas, street car, if you want a little bit of a cushion, you can run a little bit of GT260. GT260 Plus is 104 octane, but it's just got 13% ethanol in it as opposed to the 10. So that'll kind of give you an idea as far as the two different fuels and why they marry kind of well. I ran Revlon on 100 octane for a while, and it's worth a little bit, but it's not as much as you might think. In fact, it's only really worth it to kill some of the short-term knock retard when it's really cold or really hot outside. For anything in between, it didn't do any good to run that fuel in that car. Keeping in mind that I didn't tune for the fuel, I was just using it as a safety measure. If I had tuned for the fuel, I could probably drag another couple of degrees of timing out of the tune that's in it now, which doesn't really have much timing to begin with, and probably pick up 1/10.5, maybe 2/10, and that would put me at in super crazy deep weather, would put me at that 10.0999 range. I've thought about doing that, but it'd be more like a halo pass and, like a Hail Mary pass, I should say. And I'm kind of over trying to do that. In fact, I'm not even pulling the passenger seat in that car anymore. It is what it is. And I'm just not going to mess with it anymore in that respect. Rick's saying, yeah, I've got some time before my Hellcat goes in for work, so I'll be paying attention to others that are doing the flex conversion. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I've heard that it works. Works question mark. That's what I've gathered from it more than anything else. But never say never. And I'm right now kind of on the fence with it. We've got a little bit of time before the weather starts to change into fall, and so I don't get real worked up over trying to cover another 2/10 out of my car, though. That's the thing. At my boost level, again, if I cover 2/10, it just means that the car runs a 990. maybe a real high 980. And from somebody who's driven an extraordinary amount of 9-second cars, that I can tell you that the difference in feel is not, you won't be able to perceive a difference. It's not going to be like I pulleyed the car and it hits harder off the line or it hits harder off a downshift. It's not going to be like it's a red eye where it just hits really hard all the time. It's not going to be like that. And so you just, God, it's so jaded of me to say this, and I know what this is going to sound like, but at some point, it's just not worth it anymore. And as much as I would say, yeah, throw the kitchen sink at it, pulley it, E85, do everything. Yeah, you can do all of that, but then that's where you know where your money's been spent. It's when you do these smaller changes to the car. I mean, yeah, it's neat from a novelty standpoint, but from a feel of the thing, don't kid yourself. There's not that big of a difference. So's asking, when would you decide to upgrade injectors? I got offered a set of Hellcat injectors. I only have 1,000 miles on them for $200. He's swapping to 1050s. Is it worth it? And Michael Grove saying, almost missed it, but I'm here. So here's what I would suggest. The Hellcat injectors, I wouldn't, unless, I'm going to have to throw this caveat out here for you. Unless the car was running a month ago, I wouldn't use those Hellcat injectors. And the reason why I say that is because they're not serviceable. They're not rebuildable. And if they've been sitting on a shelf for any length of time, what can happen is that any residual ethanol that's in the fuel will start to eat those things up. They have to be run. And one of the deals, like Keith over at Fuel One here in Houston, really good guy. He's real awesome. But dude's, it's what he does, is fuel injectors. And Racer X had actually given me a set. This is back when I had Shalandra. He had given me a set of Hellcat fuel injectors. And I sent him over to Keith saying, hey, can you flow test these and clean them up? We're going to use them on my car. And for what would have been an E85 conversion on that car. And he's like, nope, not going to touch them. And the reason why is, number one, they're basically non-serviceable. And two, they can go bad. So if the injectors are fresh right out of the car, it's worth it. And you know the history of these injectors, not somebody just telling you that they're out of the car. That's not going to fly here. You have to know these injectors personally. If that's the case, then yeah, it might be worth it. But again, if they've been sitting in a box, sitting in a bag, in a Ziploc sack, or whatever the case is for any real length of time, probably best to move on from that. And that's not me. That's the guy that, I mean, because what we did at Pikes was, even with new injectors, they were flow checked. You would be shocked, mortified, I should say, with how often manufacturers send you the wrong parts. I've had a wrong drive shaft sent 3 separate times for the same vehicle. I've had incorrect fuel injectors show up. I've had incorrect clutches show up. I've had, basically, if it can go wrong, it has gone wrong. To the point of incorrect engines showing up, apparently. So that's what can happen with these things. So we would get these injectors flow checked. Even though they were brand new, we would spend the money to have them flow checked and balanced and made sure that they were good. And we would have brand new injectors that would be off. And Keith would have to go in and do work his magic and flow balance all these things. And these are all brand new components. We've had brand new components that just didn't work well at all. And obviously it's good that we had sent them to him, because you can see these things in the injector tester. Have 7 of them that have real pretty cones, and then one of them that looks like a freaking squirt gun. This stuff happens. That's why you always Two things you always do. You always send your brand new injectors to somebody that, or buy your injectors from somebody that flow tests them and balances them. If you buy brand new injectors, have them flow checked and balanced. And if you buy cylinder heads, always send them to a cylinder head shop and have them checked, have the valve seats checked, have them leak checked, the whole bit, because you see brand new stuff fail all of the time. Brand new parts broke all the time. Back in the day, distributors and coils, bad from the factory all the time. I mean, it just, this stuff happens, man. And Mark Williams saying, almost missed it, but I'm here. Well, guys, I tell you what, we are over 2 hours, so I'm going to wrap it up. It's my privilege to hang out with you guys. Love each and every one of y'all. Would not do this without you. And with that, guys, be safe out there. If you're going to send it, don't bend it. Keep your shiny side up. We will catch y'all on the next one. Happy 4th of July. Stay safe out there, and we will see you on the other side. And that is a wrap. Adios.